Hi, everyone. Welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for Humanities at Play. My name is Kathleen Quone. I am a program manager at Nevada Humanities, our state's council partner for the National Endowment for the Humanities. With Humanities at Play, our goal is to pair gameplay and other interactive activities with thoughtful discussions about the humanities and how they shape and enrich our everyday lives. Throughout the end of 2024, Nevada Humanities is producing a series of Humanities at Play events that are part of United We Stand Connecting Through Culture, which is a joint initiative of the National Endowment for the Humanities and the National Endowment for the Arts to leverage the arts and humanities to combat hate-motivated violence through programs that deepen public understanding of and contextualize community, state, and national history and foster cross-cultural understanding, empathy, and community resilience. I am super excited to be joined tonight by Dr. Edmond Chang of Ohio University. Ed, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's really exciting to have you on. I've been a fan of yours for a while, and so I was sort of, I know, whenever, it's true though. So it was really happy when you said, yes, I will do this thing. And I believe you said is this your second Twitch appearance ever? Is that right?
Correct.
So everyone give Ed a warm welcome. For his second is the best. So for those of you just meeting him for the first time, Edmond Y. Chang, PhD, is an associate professor of English at Ohio University. His areas of research include technoculture, race, gender, and sexuality, video games, analog games, queer game studies, cultural studies, popular culture, and 20th and 21st century American literature. Some of his recent publications include Gaming While Asian and Made in Asian/America, Why Video Games Are Never Really About Us, Do They See Me as a Virus? Imagining Asian American Environmental Games in American Studies, Why Are the Digital Humanities So Straight? And Alternative Historiographies of the Digital Humanities, and Queergaming and Queer Game Studies. He is also co-edited with Ashlee Bird a special game studies themed issue of the journal Configurations. Ed is the creator of Tellings, a high fantasy tabletop RPG, which we'll be sure to ask him about in the second half of our stream, and Archaea, a live action role-playing game. He's also an editor for Analog Game Studies and a contributing editor for Gamers with Glasses, which we both have glasses. Let us know in chat if you have glasses. So we are going to spend the first half of our stream today playing through a few short games as we think and talk through issues, including but not limited to gender and race, vulnerability, difference and belonging, and representation in video games. I really appreciate Ed's recommendations for this evening's games. All three of the games that we're playing today are new to me, which I'm really excited about. And so I hope that as we play through these short games, which are also free, you can find them online, I hope that you share and that you feel welcome to share your various reactions and emotions that these games elicit from you. And then if, of course, you have any questions for me and Ed, feel free to put them in our chat. So first up tonight, we're going to be playing the game Loved, which is a browser-based platform game. It was released back in June 2010 and developed by Alexander Osius, who is an Australian graphic designer and artist. So after we play Loved, we're going to then play the game ImmorTall, which is created by Evan Miller, released in February 2010. And then we'll end our first part of our stream with the game LIM, which is created by Merritt Kay, who is a Canadian writer, editor, and video game designer, and that was released in 2012. We'll take our short break, and then we'll come back for our Q&A and conversation. So I thought before each game, since you teach these games, right, in your classes, if you don't mind saying a little bit about each one, that would be a great way to sort of get us in the right headspace.
Sure.
Yeah.
So great. I was saying a little bit before we started streaming, we were pre-gaming, that not actually drinking water. That I teach a lot of free games, web-based games, free to download, or like itch.io games that you pay $1 or $2 or, whatever, mainly because, in a classroom, I really can't expect students necessarily to go out and shell out a bunch of money for a AAA game. Occasionally done it before, but that also means that, students have to have access to the equipment and or computers that can run everything. So I really love these little games. And I have a mantra mantra where I think really simple games can teach really complex ideas. And I think all three of these games are really short. They belong to, the category of like 5-minute game, 5-10-minute game. And they're all doing something very particular and thinking about like one or two really interesting ideas. Just a brief, like mild content warning. All three of these games are stressful in different ways, but it's all kind of cartoony and it seems really innocuous. But I think they are food for thought for a lot of the topics that United We Stand is thinking about, and what this stream, sorry, not podcast, is talking about. So Loved is great because I think it really focuses on gender. And you can see in the opening screen, you are given a choice. But it also is thinking about relationships and perhaps abusive relationships. But I also think it's really thinking about the medium of games itself and thinking about things like choice and agency, and those kinds of things, and how that might then line up to the narrative that the game is talking about. So you want to give it a shot?
I will. All right, so let's get going. So I have
Should we have chat pick who we want to be?
Yeah, let us know. Should we, are we a man or are we a woman? And apologies, there is no non-binary option for those of you who might identify as such. While we wait for chat to let us know if they think we should be identified here as a man or a woman, I love some of these comments. Angry Ostrich does not have glasses. 2020 gang. I am very jealous. I
have not been 2020 since probably ever. So.
Flip a coin.
You pick.
Okay,
then.
Let's go with man. Yeah. Okay. So this is actually a good point. When we play games, and you're given a choice to identify as a character, I often pick, I don't know, I guess, more feminine leaning characters. So I'm thinking here, when you create a custom character in, I don't know, like Stardew Valley or Baldur's Gate 3. But yeah, I think let's see what happens when we pick a man. Okay, no, you are a girl. Will I teach you how to play or not?
Let's be contrary.
Is that not?
Yeah.
Okay, not. You will fail. Oh, there's something really ominous about this, like black and white, just like very stark aesthetic. Not that. You will control nothing. You are wrong.
Okay. And then it's like most platformer side scrollers. You just use the arrow keys to move this little avatar around. And when I teach this game, I often ask, like, who is this? Right? It's anthropomorphic. It looks kind of cat-like to me. But you're just this little person. And then you get icky messages from the narrator,
That's right.
And then again, I love how simple it is. It's just all in silhouette, just very few colors.
Touch the You're right. Yeah, this character is. Oh, they can
squish.
Crouch. Yeah, they can squish. Minor Totoro vibes in the chat.
Yes, a little bit.
And I'll also say here, I am not a good platformer, so
doing
my best.
I'm a terrible platformer. So we're just going along, and we're trying to figure out what the vibe is.
Yeah. Well, Ed, I feel like I'm already failing you because you said to be contrary, and I have not been.
Sure. Maybe we'll get to choices where we get to be a little bit more contrary. You're really good at this.
Thank you.
Oof. Scary.
Yeah, this reminds me of one of the first games I ever played was Super. Will it get me? It got me.
Yeah.
Super Mario World. I just remember Bowser's castle with like the thwomps coming down. That was really scary when I was younger. Ashley said she follows instructions well, except for the one about not following instructions. I know, that was my bad. Okay. So I cannot hide here. I wasn't patient enough.
No, that's okay.
I like to think that there's like ominous music in the background.
There's a little bit of sound, but
Yeah. I don't think I want to. So yeah, let's not do that. Okay. Disgusting. Yeah, there is something like, oh, there's a colored block. There is something like very visceral about just like the 1-word, 2-word responses, right? Right. Even at the beginning when we said we identified as a man, and then they say good girl when we listen to them. Yeah, I feel kind of icky inside, but oh, I love this color. Oh, do I own your body or your mind?
Either is gross.
Yeah, I was gonna say there is no option.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So I don't know how much if we want to just keep playing before I espouse the kinds of things that I think are going on, or should
you're welcome to espouse. Go ahead and espouse. Do you want to espouse before or after I pick one?
You pick, and then we can talk about this.
Let's go with mind right now, because I feel like, well, I guess as a woman, I feel like body over any like body ownage issues, but I feel like mind is like something that's easier to change, maybe like if someone's trying to like abuse us or I think that this is something that we can overcome. So I'm gonna say mind, like we're already changing our mind, as it were.
Yeah.
No.
Yuck.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what do you think these little color blocks are? They're just there.
Well, they showed up the first time we disobeyed, and this world is otherwise black and white. So there's kind of something like maybe like for the first time, like not to necessarily wax poetic, but there's some like beauty in the world. Maybe like we're adding color where there previously wasn't any, quite literally.
Yeah. Oh, you should touch the statue so that it's a save point, basically.
Okay. Even though they said, okay.
Yeah. We want the save point.
All right. Pretty sure I was right. Okay. Hide.
And I also think that it's interesting that the statue, like for me, reads feminine, even though it's just like 8 pixels. But yeah.
Does the statue change depending on what gender you pick at the beginning? Okay. That is an interesting observation.
Uh-oh. Don't get squished.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a timing one. Okay. Run! Oh, too soon.
No!
That's because they run. All right, we can do this.
Too excited.
So how do you teach this in your classes? Like, do you have like a unit and then you ask people, like, do you have them like share their responses? Like, how do you get feedback when this is like, how do you teach a game in a class, I suppose?
It depends on what kind of class it is. So if it is a class that's fully about game studies or games, this would probably be a unit, probably early on. I often teach this game about gender because I think it, obviously it thinks about that immediate, in the first place. But I also use it as a way to think about some of the initial concepts of games, because I think and here's where I'll wax a little bit, where, I think one of the things that popular narratives about playing games is that, especially video games, is that, you have power, you have control, you have choice, you have all this agency when you're playing a game, especially, main character agent, energy, right? But a lot of the games that we're playing tonight, actually, let me think, almost all of the games that we're playing tonight really subvert that, right? But, and we might think about like, well, what does that actually mean? And so in this case, this is a simple game that's doing a very sort of complex set of ideas, even though, it's not that complicated. It's a pretty straightforward platformer. But there are some really clever design elements that are happening in the game.
Right. In chat, I saw that Container Port said strangely stressful. I mean, how do you think I feel seeing the red blocks go after me? Oh no, this is good.
No, the boxes can walk through the walls for some reason.
Right, yeah. That was like, I'm
yeah.
safe here. And And then it kept
Uh-oh.
going. Yeah. I will say that I love the color, but it does make it really hard to
Yes.
see.
Right.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. So I think that's part of the mechanic.
Hmm.
So building on what you said earlier about like, oh, when we disobey, it's bringing color into the world,
Yes.
but it's also bringing a certain kind of like certainty and navigability. It's taking that away from you, because the world is not as clear as it used to be.
That's right.
Touch the statue. Okay.
Oh, soon we will see each other. Are you excited or frightened? So yeah, I didn't say it out loud, but right, every time we disobeyed, it would say ugly creature. So yeah, there is this sort of,
Right.
I like what you said earlier about how there are some games that are, of course, AAA games, which are, have a lot of big budget, super flashy, and I think, get a lot of appeal. And this is so simple, but in its simplicity, it's very like visceral. Like I feel myself, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm really reacting to this. And I wonder if people are in chat, right? Container Port said this is stressful. Well, Angry Ostrich likes the squish. But yeah, it's so simple. Maybe that's just get the emotions themselves. Am I excited or frightened to meet? I wouldn't say I'm excited to meet them. I guess I am a little scared. I also don't want to tell them I'm scared. This is hard. I'm frightened.
Well, so, if the narrative that we're telling here is one of, at least maybe not necessarily a romantic relationship, but a relationship where there is clearly asymmetry of power, right? Like because the avatar is not human or humanoid totally looking, we could almost imagine this is like a mad scientist or something, and you're the lab animal that has to, well, because you are kind of performing tricks, right? So people are like, don't admit weakness.
Right, yeah. Silver says, I was just about to say that even though the game is simple, it's making me more stressed than other games I've played that have better graphics.
Oh, wait till we get to LIM.
Yeah.
It's even simpler than this one.
Okay, I'll say frightened. Let's
Okay.
see. I mean, that, right, the red doesn't help.
Yeah.
Then it will only be more
Gross.
enjoyable. Yeah. But right, in the grossness, I'm like, Alexander, the creator of this game, this is really brilliant. Just
Yeah.
calls it a short story, I think. Loved a short story at the very beginning. And
Well, that again, the title itself is loved, right? And you're like, who are we talking
right,
about?
do
What
we
are we
want to
talking
be
about?
loved by, like, yeah, do we want to be loved by this mysterious narrator? Do we want to be loved by not him? Okay.
Sorry, I don't mean to
It's
add
okay.
the pressure.
But when I say do not fail, did I do it? Love in the past tense. Oh, good point. Love and yeah, so it could be loved. Do I want to be loved, or I was loved and
Right.
no longer?
Or you did love, or or this started out as love, right? I think you have to click the hate.
Yeah.
Even the choice of link color again is, oh, there we go.
I loved you.
This weird confession.
Where will you go? Will you be close to me? That's an interesting choice. I feel like it's a non-choice.
Well, again, I mean, continuing the sort of obvious reading about this as an abusive relationship, like a lot of times, there is no choice.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think if I had to choose between the two, I'd rather say go.
Right. And in fact, like the common knowledge, or the common response to hearing about a story about a person that is in a problematic relationship, a lot of times people are like, just go, right? Leave that person. But a lot of times that can put them in more danger, especially if they are unhoused or, lose resources or whatever. Not just from from retribution and things like that. Right. So, being mindful of time, this is one ending. There's another ending. Okay. And the other ending, I guess should I spoil it for the people? If you obey everything, it gives you a slightly different ending.
Okay.
Both kind of are yucky, right? Like because you're in this. So you can imagine if you obey, then it's more like, yes, you're staying with me. Yes, you are following my directions, all that sort of stuff. I loved because the choices to disobey and the choices to risk, things breaks the game kind of, right? Which is why those squares, they're breaking the game because they're breaking your ability to really clearly navigate the situation. And even if we think about this in terms of like how power and relationships work, like when you stop following scripts, when you stop following what people expect of you, when you stop following norms, it becomes anxiety, right? And people freak out and stress out. And sometimes that anxiety creates more violence, right? Which is what hate-based violence is really about, right? And then for the individual, it also creates uncertainty and insecurity and all that sort of stuff.
Can I, before we get the second game started, I'm wondering, so, right, you said there's 2 endings. I'm curious, if you follow all the directions, are there still red blocks that follow you around? Because I felt like...
Yes.
Okay.
It's still dangerous. Okay. It's still icky. You're still sort of told that, you are not doing the right thing or you're not a good little creature or whatever it is. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So ImmorTall, and the big TALL is important. And this Flash game disappeared. A lot of these Flash games disappeared because Flash died, Adobe Flash died. But they've all come back because people are either fixing them or we have better emulators now. So the game begins with this thing crashing. And then if you can't see, you're this little slug, for lack of a better word.
Just realized I was muted this whole time.
Oh, so yes. And there is music.
Okay. I'm going to turn this down just a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of loud. And so again, side scroller. And I often teach this as so you can click or you can use arrows, but note that when you reach this point, you can't go left. You have to go right.
I see. Okay.
And then we get some extra diegetic, like outside of the narrative, Imagine if we lived in a world where commands appeared above our heads. Sometimes I want to hit mute when I'm like in a noisy coffee shop or something like that.
Oh, we did get taller. When I played Sims for the first time, I would start thinking that people had little green things over their head, and if they didn't like me, I'd start turning yellow or red. So I still think about that sometimes.
So you meet this family, they're like, we don't like you, but the girl likes you. Oh. Get more food. Okay, before you go on. Okay. So I often talk about, again, how simple this game is and thinking about, like, I say, this is all silhouette, avatars are very simple. And I go, who are these people? Right? And they're like, well, it's a family. And I was like, well, how do you know? Well, there's a mom and a dad and 2 kids. I was like, well, how do you know? Right? Well, the girl is a girl. And I was like, well, how do you know? Right. And so just drilling down into like, these are all things that we have naturalized, right? The little girl has a dress on and a ponytail. The boy has, a baseball cap, and the mom is a little taller and has a long ponytail, and the dad is the tallest and has big shoulders, and that we say, oh, this is just a nuclear family. But again, this is something that we didn't have to even think about, and we already know all this information. Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Okay, go, aliens.
Also, a lot of love for Flash games in chat. Yeah.
Yes.
Shield. Wait, how do I shield? Uh-oh. Don't hurt them. Wait, are they chasing me, or am I protecting them? I don't know.
You don't know.
Okay, wait.
So, uh-oh.
The dad's in front of me.
Behind you.
Run. Okay, yeah, get behind me. Oh, wait, no, there's
Mom.
people. Ah, wait, no, there's these people. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay. This got way more intense all of a sudden. I was just... ah! I was just content to just go right.
So you can see bullet time happens, right? So you move a little faster when there's danger on the field. And I love that moment of shield because everyone's like, well, how do you do? And you just like press buttons. You're like, wait, how do I do it? And you learn that you are the shield.
But are they shooting at the family or at us? Because we're the alien. I guess.
You don't know.
Yeah, is this what we're finding out? Get behind me! Stop.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite mechanics of this game.
Okay.
The dad always runs out front, just like a man.
The music's
Okay,
pretty effective.
Uh-oh, now what's happening?
Oh. I look hurt. Or I'm walking slower.
Yeah. It's very like, my students would be like, I'm pressing the button as hard as I can.
I promise. Oh,
Right.
no.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, this like discordant music, super effective.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Ouch. Okay, everyone's okay. Now, of course, you can play this game antisocially.
Oh, you mean like not block for them, or
Yeah.
Okay.
And just,
Sure.
let them die.
You don't want that. Uh-oh. As I say that, now I'm scared I'm gonna let someone down. I'm sure they'll be fine. Thanks.
So there are very few colors in this game. We have, if people get hit, they bleed red. If you get hit, you bleed green, because, aliens always have green blood. And then there's, besides black and white, there's another color, and it'll come at the end.
Okay.
You're almost there.
Right. It's like I'm running. I'm going. Oh wait. I'm going as fast as I can. Okay. Oh no. Oh, she's crying. There's some blue.
Yeah.
Oh, is that snow? Yeah.
Of course, only the girl avatars are crying.
Right.
Boys are like, we're out. We don't care.
You said, I associated the green as a good for a successful
nice.
block. Interesting. Yeah, I love how, right, you can have different readings of a game.
Yes.
Oh.
Now, I will say, no matter what you do in this game, like if you try to block everything or someone dies or if they all die or whatever, you always die at the end.
Mm.
And then you have this very weird, enigmatic thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there it says Evan Miller. Interesting. I don't think I've ever noticed that. Maybe they added that.
Yeah. Present.
Will you restart it? And I want to show you something.
Yeah.
So I often teach this game right at the beginning because it's super easy. And we talk about like, look at all of this information we just pulled out of this 3-minute game. And so there's more going on in the game than just the story, right? And I've taught this game for a decade. And then a student was like,
Oops.
So before you move, when you go back, don't move yet when you crash. So I often said, is this a war story? Was the war already here? Is this an immigrant story? Is this a refugee story? Or is this a response to the alien crashing? All of these sorts of things, right? So it depends on how you want to read. I think a lot of stuff goes on. So instead of going right, go left.
Oh, we can go left. Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
No. Other way. Okay.
Oh, go up to the cliff, the little ledge, but
Okay.
don't fall off.
Okay.
So enough that she sees you.
Scooching. Okay, there we go.
Okay, now go left, all the way left. I never knew you could do this. And a student showed us in class, and I was like, what?
Did I do it? Or do I have to go? Maybe I need to scooch a little bit further.
Go a little further.
Okay, yeah.
I think.
I was a little bit scared of falling off.
Yeah.
Oh no, Okay, I can restart it.
No.
All right.
No, it's fine. Go up to her.
Okay.
Go up to her. And then go meet, I think, maybe it's after you meet the family. So go meet the family.
Okay.
Maybe, hopefully it still works.
If not,
I thought it did.
We can restart it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
there's
like,
point. Yum.
Interesting that, again, what do we make of that? It's the kids that are most accepting of this alien, of this strange creature person, right?
Right.
And it's the parents that are like, get away from him or get away from them.
That's what children's movies have taught me. Like, yes,
aliens are always friendly.
Yeah.
No, go meet the parents.
Okay.
When they get scared. I also often say things like, how do we gender the alien? Like, and okay, when they get off, then go left.
Okay.
So the boy goes in, he follows the story, and then you're like, wow, these earthlings are mean.
I'm just gonna nope out of here as much as I can. I don't think I can go.
Oh, I guess I can't.
Okay, I can reload.
Oh, interesting. No. Well, I just don't like. There's a way for you. Maybe go till she's following you, and then, but don't get to the parents.
Come here. Okay.
Maybe people can try this at home, but there is a way. Someone showed me where you have to reach a certain point, and then you can go all the way left. Okay, now go all the way left.
Let's try.
Yeah, because she'll follow you now.
And chat,
Love
Burned
the
Out,
music.
right? Burned Out Lawyer says, this is like a representational Rorschach test where your personal experience aligns with what you see. Oh, I'm not sure if I can go over this cliff. I can't.
Here, go talk to her for a second.
Okay.
Maybe.
Hello.
Okay. I don't know where it is. There is a moment where you can go and get back in your ship and you leave.
Oh.
Which I think is really, really fascinating. Well, here's the thing is, like, you've been taught, like we've been taught in school that to bring our experiences and readings and things like that to everything. And I think that's really, really important. And at the same time, I'm also trying to think about the ways that, how might we look at this and do an argument that's not necessarily like, what did the game intend or what did the developers intend or whatever, but, and to support it in some way with what's there, right? So I think about, for example, like, what does it mean to be protecting a nuclear family, a heterosexual family, right? What does it mean to meet them and then let them die, right? I think those are kinds of choices that I think are useful. I don't know where the threshold is. People will have to experiment. Amazing. All right, want to switch to the next game?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Like you said, I love how it was very short. I didn't realize it would be this short, but you already form an attachment.
Right. And then once so most people think that the war is because you're there. It's not that the family is in war. But obviously the sound changes, the color, the background color changes. I'm gonna let someone get killed. Just only for the sake of this game, not maybe
because I'm a bad person.
Now,
okay.
You got hit.
Okay.
Let's go back. I think maybe that's it. You get shot at, and then you're like, nope.
Okay, let's find out. I think I got hit once. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, I don't need to protect these people.
Although I wasn't sure how to get back up the hill. That was the only...
No, I think it'll let you. Okay. It should let you now.
I hope so. Let's find out. And if not, well, you can find this game if you Google it.
Oh, now the dad's
you can.
Like, hey.
The cliff disappeared. Yep. Oh my goodness. We literally noped out.
Bye.
Oh no! And now the family's fending for themselves. Oh, and now look at the animation.
The boy and girl are crying. Yeah. Aw.
Wow. Well, yeah, thanks for bringing up that secret second ending, which, yeah, I don't know
didn't
how
know about it
you're...
for 10 years. For 10 years, did not know about it. Well, and then again, he gets to live, or they get to live. Sorry, it gets to live. Hilarious. Amazing. So again, 3-minute game. How effective, right? Like all of these little narrative shorthands that we have are, I mean, this is why tropes work, is that we're like, okay, we need a family, we need war, we need to protect them. And that creates pathos, right? It creates this like emotional response, mainly because we're in a world where we're supposed to protect people, right? And what does it mean for an alien who just got to the world to want to do this for a family they just met?
Yeah, like not even
think,
10 seconds after meeting them, you know?
Right. Or why is the world responding with such like immense, you know, what is it called? Like, oh, I can't remember the word now, right? With extreme prejudice, right? Like, why is the world trying to destroy this alien, which, you know, ate an apple and something else, and that was it. Okay, I love this game. This is my favorite of the 3. It's so simple and it's weird. So
Perfect.
I don't know if you have sound on because it could get a little scary, but
I do.
we can try. So you're a little square. Do 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 do. Again, super simple.
Oh, yeah. Now we're beautifully flashing rainbow.
And you're like, hi,
Hello.
hi, hello.
I'm just like you now, friends. Squares. Oh, yeah, so there's a sound.
Yeah. So if you press Z, you become the color of the block closest to you.
Okay. Oh, yeah, they don't like
and you
this
might have to hold it down. Yeah. And then you should be able...
They're still in my way.
You should be able to get by them. Uh-oh.
That's her. I mean, this is perfect, right? We're sort of demonstrating how people don't hold open a door for other people.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Phew. All right. Press Z.
Oh, so zooming in is a little bit ominous. I don't like this.
Well, it slows you.
Oh, they still don't like me. Okay. I'm just gonna run.
Run. You might not be able to get out. There you go.
There we go.
Phew.
Oh.
No.
Am I stuck? I feel like I'm stuck here.
You might be stuck.
Okay.
So it's a little glitchy. So it's like a very simple game. But, you know, how... Okay.
I'll reload it and we'll go from the beginning.
Yeah, reload it. Like, how interesting where, like, if this is, you know, not just a metaphor, but mechanically it is about literally not being able to pass, right? Not being able to blend in, not being able to just be part of the crowd. And even if you are part of the crowd, once you're found out, like, they don't let you, you know, they don't let you pretend anymore, ultimately.
Oh, it's like you get to your breaking point, maybe? Okay, I'm gonna stop and run.
Right.
Burned out lawyer says, does that sound like, was it me? Yeah, the
a little bit.
Sound effects are really efficient.
They're very, very simple. Yeah, so you're gonna have to you have to get a little closer to them.
I don't like this. I remember what you did last time.
And then just swoop by.
Okay. Secret blending. Oh, okay, not fast enough. Run.
There you go. All right.
I don't even have like vibration in my keyboard, but I feel like it's very physical. Wait, how do you know? I'm the same color as you.
Right.
It's okay. I can do it.
You can run.
Okay.
Run.
Silver says,
fine. Oh no,
didn't think I'd be empathizing with a square today, right?
Isn't that amazing? You're like, all right,
I'll reload it.
again.
Yeah. It's good to reload.
Yeah.
Heightens up.
And obviously, the metaphor here is people can't just reload the day when they're being punished, abused. Go and play it. It's even more stressful, right? Students really react to this game, and I was like, I don't know if you remember, there was an old if you Google or YouTube IKEA lamp commercial. Do you remember this?
No, I don't.
There's this commercial where the commercial is this woman has a lamp and it's like broken down, and she's like, I'm going to buy a new lamp from IKEA. So it's selling lamps, right? And she puts the lamp out on the street to throw away. And the lamp is like looking up at her apartment, and it's raining on him. And then this like weird Swedish guy goes, it's just a lamp. Why do you think it has feelings? Which I think is really funny. And so here we have a little square that's not anthropomorphic at all,
right.
And it evokes so much feeling, which I love ultimately. And so, we might talk about, like you were saying earlier, about like being able to customize your avatar or picking like the gender that you want. I think all of those things are really important. Oh, there you go. Okay. So, so I write about this in a couple of articles where I call this like what I call a queer game, a game that is like sort of subverting certain norms about games, right? And I met Merritt K a long time ago, and I asked, like, did you mean for this glitch to happen? And they were very cagey about it. So you glitch, right? So a glitch is like an unexpected result. Sometimes it's because the collision physics doesn't take into account that little space between the gray squares is actually a little space. And so maybe mathematically you were just hit the right way where it knocks you through that teeny little space, right? Or it's just part of the way the game works. And so you float around in this nebulous space, and you can sort of so you can get close to the wall, and they will try to attack you, or keep going along.
Yeah, maybe these people squares, right?
Yeah, people squares. What I call the sort of, this world. Well, so then you get into rooms where there are more than one color, and then you're just like, now how do I do this? But you could reach the end of the game, right? The end of the game is you get past all of these mean squares. Yeah, just imagine trying to get through that gauntlet.
I know, it's like challenging. And then, like, off stream, I might.
might try.
Anyone can do this. If you look up LIM on Itch.io, you can find this and play it.
And then
yourself.
you encounter.
Hello.
You encounter a square just like you, and that's the end of the game. But it's not a perfect ending because you're outside, right? You're outside of the wall.
That's true.
But you also live, right? Imagine, right? Like you get to exist, and that sort of unexpected being knocked out of the wall is what I think is sort of really fascinating, right? Because we want games often, obviously, to work. We don't want them to crash. We don't want them to glitch. But what if we think about the ways that those expectations are also kinds of norms, right? And how might we design games to do things that are a little bit on the unexpected side? And that can be as easy as like a narrative change or breaking a stereotype. But I really like games that mechanically also, do things that are really, really fascinating and interesting. Now, that doesn't mean that these unexpected mechanics always are in the service of like being inclusive or being diverse or whatever, but it's a place to explore. Yeah.
I kind of want to try this one more time.
Okay.
Yeah, just
it's very challenging. I've never gotten to the end square inside the maze.
I was wondering, right? Because yeah, there are a lot of obstacles, but you're right. This is like it's so simple, right? It's literally squares, but we're putting so much into it. Right.
Well, here's another norm. I think a lot of times games are meant to be fun, and I don't think that's true. Other mediums like novels or movies, like we've read novels or we've watched movies or we watched TV that weren't exactly fun, but we could recognize them as like doing, interesting or thoughtful or dramatic or political work, right? Whereas when we say the word games, we expect like, oh, it should be fun or it should be entertaining or it should take me out of real life, right? But I think as a medium, it is, just like anything else, it can be used to think about stuff. Now, obviously, I don't want to play a game that's always like about things trying to murder me,
right?
Which is why I don't play zombie survival games or first-person shooters, right? Like that's very stressful to me. But I like games that are thinking about like, you're told, from when you're knee high to a grasshopper, that when you play a game, there's winners and losers, right? Or it's good to win. It's the best thing to win. And I think games that really subvert that, I think are really fascinating. Like, I think this game I don't think it's possible to win, but I don't know, maybe I'm sure someone has much more skilled than myself has done it.
It's an interesting game design question, right? Sometimes it's just, is it as simple as getting from point A to B, right? Like, if someone was encountered, like you would just start going in a direction because you assume at some point you'll get to an end, so to speak, whether it's you won or you lost or, you glitch out of the game. But this is really, really interesting. Container Port had a question for you. I don't know if you know the answer, but they ask, is there a meaning behind the name LIM of this game?
Not that I know of. I always think of it as like liminal, right? Something that is in between. And this character is kind of in between. But character, again, I'm anthropomorphizing a square. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I think that's the point, but I do think this is a character that is trying to belong in all of these spaces, right? Like, it's not a far leap to be like, what if we called this game Democracy? Same game, but how would that change our understanding of what we think is going on?
Right.
Or what if we called this game, Playground Bullies? Right? Or I mean, I don't know. Can I make a positive spin on this? What if we call this game like, survival of the fittest?
Right. Like not another day of work or avoid the emails, right? Like the squares are emails you don't want to answer. Living in masks. I like that.
Limbo. That's also great. That's great. That's another LIM word.
Little insurance, man. You think we're selling insurance? Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah. We're pretty much.
Yes, I'm stuck. So I want to see how far I can make it, and I hope that after the stream, I put the link in the chat earlier. If anyone wants, you can also test this out for yourself and sort of get that like, I don't think it's adrenaline, maybe like just, oh my gosh, like.
Well, you want to get through it, right? Like, and I think I like talking about like not all games are meant to be won. Not all games can be won depending on who you are, right? And so think about like the metaphors for games that we have in real life, right? Life is a game, or the playing field is level. It never is, or war is a game, or all these things. And in all of those metaphors, there are very clear winners and losers, right? And in all of those metaphors, it's usually people who are poor or brown or disabled or marginalized in some way. that will never get to the end, right? They will never get the American dream, or they will never get the big prize or beat the main boss, whatever that main boss might be. And I think all three games really sort of think about some of those kinds of, the fancy word is ludo narrative norms, right? So game and story norms.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to talk about like people like they're my students, but my students get really frustrated when they can't win a game, or there has to be a way to beat this. And I think this is why, like thinking back, speaking of living in masks, like thinking back to the pandemic, why suddenly bazillions of people were playing Animal Crossing on the Switch, right? Not just because it was something to do, but it was, this genre of what we would now call like cozy games, right? So games where you're really not doing anything except for hanging out and planting a garden. And then all of the jokes about like Animal Crossing is really about like late stage capitalism because you owe Tom Nook thousands and thousands of bells all of the time, right? But I think games are starting to think about things like, does everything have to be organized around violence? Does everything have to be organized around nationalism? Does everything have to be organized around competition? And so we're seeing a lot more games that are about cooperation or I don't know if folks know the term walking simulator, right? It was used as a pejorative for a certain genre of games that really privileged exploration rather than, accrual or blowing stuff up or whatever. And you're like, well, just walking around is not a game. I was like, but exploration is a value that is a game for some people that might not be. I'm a map completionist, right? So like when I used to be big in World of Warcraft, like I made sure I filled in the entirety of the map as much as I could, to all the places that I could go, and that sometimes meant like running through territory where I knew I was going to get killed, right? But I just wanted my map to be complete. But yeah.
I totally get that. Well, I think those are great games, the three of them. And again, I'm going to be thinking about LIM for a while. That is just incredibly, we could spend like the next 3 hours talking about LIM, honestly. Yes. Just so effective. Yes. And I think even for people who have never played a video game, like if you just use your arrows to move, I feel like they would be subject to the same sort of just like shock and like, you get the message, right? Like whether or not that's the message that Merritt intended the players to get, right? We get the, like there's, the rainbow, there's different colors you can blend in, but then there's the stress, right? The longer you hold it down, you feel...
Right. The worse it gets.
Right. The worse. I could feel myself bottling it up. And all I was doing is holding my finger on Z, and I felt like this... Right. Like chest pain of struggling. So yeah, really.
That's what
amazing.
I'm saying. Like sometimes the simplest mechanics are really super, super, super effective. I mean, just think about playing tag, freeze tag. The only mechanic is don't get touched by the person. That's it. And it's terrifying, right? To have the person running at you to trying to just touch you.
Yeah.
Right. In all fun and games, of course, but and so I think like I love big, lush, beautifully rendered, super crazy, detailed graphics worlds. Like I think they're wonderful, but I do think sometimes we privilege style over substance in a lot of the games that get made. I mean, we make the same complaints about TV or movies or whatever, right? And since so much, especially the gaming industry, is organized around technological innovation, it's not a surprise that the gaming industry is one of the few industries where, it's really about developing better graphics or better sound so that you can drive the next generation of products. Yeah.
I appreciate, Liquid Princess. There's beauty and simplicity. Yeah.
Yeah. And, we're always shocked, like, I remember when Everywhere, Everything All at Once came out, and it was made for $20 million and it made over $100 million, right? And people are like, what is going on? And I was like, well, you can do a lot if you know exactly what it is that you're trying to do. And obviously all the pieces have to fall into place, and you have to have great script and great actors and like all these sorts of things. But there isn't a whole lot that's there in terms of like CGI or all that sort of stuff that we've come to expect. Right. Yeah.
Right. What a film. 10 out of 10. You got in an agreeing chat.
I could talk 3 hours about that film.
So I think we're going to take a 5-minute break. This is where, we can refill our tea, get some more water, stand up and stretch, use the restroom, and then we're going to come back and just chat. I'm excited to, learn more about you and your work. I think I really want to ask about LARPing. That's also something I want to know more about the gaming created. Okay. So we'll be right back, and we'll see you all soon. Hello, everyone. We are back with our featured guest for this evening, Edmond Chang from Ohio University. We just finished playing through 3 different games, Loved, ImmorTall, and LIM. And oh my goodness, I'm still thinking about those 3. I'm going to be thinking for a long time. So yeah, thank you again so much for being here tonight and for suggesting them. I think that, there's just a lot of food for thought, a lot of really great comments in our chat tonight. So I wanted to get us started in a second half of our stream, which is our conversation Q&A. And again, for anyone who has any questions, don't be shy about putting them in a chat for us. But I always like to ask people about their origin story. So when we were reading your bio, there's a lot of really fantastic, things to grab at there. I always wonder, how does anyone end up where they are in the world? Did you know when you were younger that, you wanted to be a professor someday? Like, did you want to go into teaching and English? And then, how did the interest in studying and researching and presenting in video games come about? And of course, you also write on so many other topics, so we can also get to those, but sure. Let's start with those.
Well, this is going to bring up a lot of Asian immigrant emotional damage, but that's okay. This is what the stream is for. I'm the child of immigrants. I was born in the U.S. Both of my parents were academics, but they were in the sciences, or they went to graduate school. They didn't become academics, but and obviously wanted similar for me. My mother really wanted me to be a doctor. She got one, but just not the right kind. So when I was younger, I wanted to be, I love the sciences, and I still do love the sciences. And, but I also really wanted to be like, I wanted to write, fantasy novels, and I wanted to make up games and things like that. So it's always sort of percolating there somewhere, right? It wasn't until, and then when I finished undergrad, I actually went to undergrad I'm sorry, this is a long story. I actually went to undergrad to be an architect because it was artsy enough for me, but also respectable enough for my Asian parents. But I ended up not, I was good at it actually, but I hated architecture school. And there were a lot of different reasons why, but it was super competitive, and that's just not really my sort of vibe. So I ended up not finishing architecture, but I was double majoring in English. So I just switched over to English because, like all of my English majors, I love to read and, all that sort of stuff. But I had really great professors. And then I decided to go to grad school because I didn't know what else to do with my life. And that's its own long story, because I have a sort of non-traditional circuitous path through grad school. But when I finally sort of settled on what I wanted to do, so in my master's program, I discovered that I loved to teach. This was a totally new thing because I was it's hard to imagine now, but I was painfully shy growing up. Super duper shy. Speaking of not being able to fit in because, I was an Asian student in a school of predominantly, white other students. I didn't learn this till much later in my life, but my parents moved us into a community that had been white only up until the early 70s. So Oh, I was like, cool, great, amazing, you know. Um, but in my master's program, I discovered I liked teaching and I was good at it. And I think, you know, it shares a little bit with, I think, a lot of performers who are like really shy, but when they're performing, they have that performer persona.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you're just putting on that persona, then it's fine. And I liked it so much that I wanted to teach at the university level, and that basically meant getting a PhD, becoming an academic, you know, all that sort of stuff, or becoming famous. So it's like, you know, um, if you know, if I were a really famous published writer or game maker or whatever, I could have gone that route. But I decided to do the academic route, and then I did my PhD program at the University of Washington, and I was already studying kind of like online culture, cyberspace, thinking about gender, sexuality, and race in online spaces, and then also in literature about like technology and things like that. So a lot of science fiction, cyberpunk fiction, and media and stuff like that. And about, I don't know, halfway through my PhD, I was probably playing World of Warcraft for, you know, I don't know, God knows how many hours a week, you know, not working on my own work. And I was like, is there a way I could sort of combine these things so that I have something that I want to write about, but also it's something that I like doing? And my first publication, which I think came out in 2008, is on writing and World of Warcraft. And I was like, well, cool. At least part of my dissertation will be about games. So I didn't start off wanting to study games. I will confess that I'm generally not a very good game player, right? Like, I'm good at PC games and like solo RPG games and those kinds of things. But the minute I have to like kill something with a scope or jump over a burning rock or whatever, I just don't have the skills. Slowly working on them. And so I've just been sort of, most of my early publications and work have been on what's now called queer game studies. So thinking about not just like the representations of, you know, gender and sexuality in games, but also like, what does it mean for a game to, again, do things that are not in the like, you know, in the normal or normative sense, and how that might actually give us space to think about things beyond just the status quo or the stereotypical or the, you know, default in the world. Yeah. And then I'm a dilettante as a scholar. So usually I'm like, oh, that sounds like a cool topic. And then I'll just run over there and do something. And then, but for the most part, I work in, you know, race, gender, sexuality, in technology in some way, digital technologies mostly. And then my newer work right now is on what I'm just sort of broadly calling ethnic futurism. So there has been this sort of resurgence, I wonder why, in Afrofuturism and Indigenous futurism and other forms of ethnic futurism. And so I've been trying to stake out my little territory in Asian futurisms. Yeah, speaking of everywhere, everything all at once. Yeah, yeah.
I really appreciate all of that. You know, I think a lot of my life sort of parallels sort of that journey that you're talking about. So yeah, anytime anyone, I like this question for so many different reasons, because I think sometimes people don't hear enough about, oh, you know, it's not just a straight shot. Some people know exactly what they want out of life and they just go down that path. And some people, you know, take, you know, kind of like a winding, maybe not like LIM. LIM was sort of straightforward, but, you know, like a more like mazy path to get to where they are.
Well, and you have things that block you and you have things that knock you off your path, and you have things like, you know, and I, like I said, like not everyone that becomes an academic, you know, goes to grad school, gets a PhD, becomes a professor, gets a tenure track job, like all those sorts of things. And I've been very, very, very lucky that all of the, you know, planets aligned. And I also did all of the hard work, right? Like it's both things that are happening. And yeah, now, you know, I'm trying to finish a couple of books and keep striving, keep running that rat race. But yeah, yeah.
So I'm wondering, just for, again, for people in the chat who are just meeting you for the first time or watching this video later on, I would love to learn more about what technoculture is.
Okay.
I put that in your bio, or it's from your bio, but that's, I think,
Right.
a relatively, I know what those things mean kind of separately. Like I have an idea vaguely of technology and culture, but with
Right.
technoculture and the digital humanities, I feel like all of this is kind of in like similar spheres. But for you, what does that mean?
Yeah, I'm academic speak, right? But I mean, technoculture is just sort of a shorthand for, I'm a humanities scholar. I'm a literature scholar, right? It doesn't sound like it, but I definitely am. I'm a trained literary scholar. I still love teaching novels, short stories, poems, plays, like all those sorts of things. But I also am interested in other texts, like other cultural productions, things that we make, and what do those things tell us about the world that we live in, right? Or in the futurism part, how might we use books and media and things like that to think about worlds that are not yet here?
Mm-hmm.
And so technoculture sort of very broadly is just sort of trying to study the interactions between technology and culture, or technology and politics, or technology and all these sorts of things, because we live in a world where we often think of technology like, hold up a phone or whatever, or the computers that we're all using right now, as being neutral tools, right? It's the tools aren't bad. It's how people use them that are bad or good or whatever. And I think that we are learning, especially with digital technologies, but this is true of analog technologies too, that there are biases and norms and values and whole stories that are embedded in all of these sorts of things, right? And it can be a big and flashy story, like the development of the atom bomb, that has so much going on around it, right? That crosses race, gender, sexuality, technology, politics, all that sort of stuff. Or something as simple as, like, I don't know, the bicycle, where we don't often think of the bicycle as being, this technocultural object, but it's definitely, as like, why are bikes gendered,
Mm.
right? We don't often think about that, but and I don't know if they still. I mean, I haven't bought a bike in a really long time, but I still do think about the fact that girls' bikes don't have the crossbar, like that front bar, and boys' bikes do. And you would think it would be the reverse for, biological reasons, or for physiological reasons. But, that bar wasn't there because of the 19th century. It's so that you could wear big skirts and ride a bike, right? So that's what technoculture is for me, is like thinking about those sorts of relationships. And I really like looking at stories and about technology to think about, like, well, what is this saying? What is this doing? What is this telling us?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm curious because, as we talk about sort of what makes a game, I don't want to say like a good one, but one that's like thought provoking, you have created some different games. And I'm wondering if you think about these, all of these issues when you're making them, like, when you're right.
100%.
Yeah.
So, you like that about bikes. I can give you a scarier one. For example, and I don't know, this is a tangent, but I love this. When, I don't know if you've ever gotten into a car and the seatbelt doesn't fit you, or the seatbelt cuts you at a weird place, especially if you're short, or whatever. But studies have shown that seatbelts were designed for crash test dummies that were averages of people's sizes, right? And humans can be lots of different sizes, right? And it turns out that a lot of those designs were on primarily quote unquote male crash test dummies, which meant that women drivers or women users of seatbelts were killed or hurt way more often because it wasn't designed for them. And we can go on. There's all sorts of things. I mean, how many of my left-handed friends talk about like the dangers of using right-handed scissors, right? Like, this is where the technology has has a real sort of bias built into it that does have, real world consequences in a lot of ways. And, we don't want to even get into like AI. And I mean, we could, but like, all of those things are coming up.
As you said, we don't have to get into AI, right? You anticipated your question.
Yes. That's its own huge giant can of worms. So my games are more traditional. So like Tellings is a tabletop role-playing game. So think Dungeons and Dragons and it's a rule system more than a game world. And so, and then Archaea is a live action role-playing game. It's a what would be called a padded weapon system. So if you've ever been in a park and you've seen people running around dressed up and hitting each other with foam weapons, that's the kind of LARP that is. And then I've designed a couple of little small games. But right now I'm working on a card game, a cooperative card game called Archaea Bane. It's set in the Archaea, it's my IP, so I get to use that world. But I think I haven't done a digital game because I decided to be an academic, right? So that will be my shorthand. But like even I did a major revision of Archaea about 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I was reading through it, and these were games I wrote in the 90s, right? Before grad school, like, when I was in my 20s, and I was like, whoa, there are some things in here that I would not write today. Right. So for example, like high fantasies dependence on real world racialized tropes as a way to signal difference, right? Or this is a different country, or this is a different culture, or this is a different, people or whatever. That was all in there because that's what I knew, right? And so when I did the revision, I decided, no, I'm going to leave most of it because it is a product of my own history. But I softened some of the sort of like harder edges. So for example, there's a province, a country in the world of Archaea called Talanth. And all of the naming conventions are vaguely Japanese sounding, right? And though the text doesn't say this is where ninjas and samurai live, right? Like you get that vibe, right? And so I went through and kind of just sort of softened those sorts of things. And there's one day when I have all the time in the world, I want to write an article. I want to write a sort of like game design postmortem where I compare the early game version and then what would that game look like now if I rewrote it. And it would look really, really different, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I did put, for people wondering where you can learn more, I'll put this command in the chat. You can find more on his website. So if you're wondering, what are we talking about? If you go to edmondchang.com, you can learn more about Tellings and Archaea there. So yeah, I've wondered a lot about game design because I think this is something that's come up recently, and we're working on an original tabletop game here at Nevada Humanities. Nice. Then actually next week I'll be streaming with a scholar. We're going to be playing Spirit Island through Steam, but that's like an anti-colonialist. They try to be anti-colonialist in that board game, and I think the world of board games, like it's starting to be reckoned with, as you said. Like, these are a lot of games are based on like conquering other people or enslaving them, or make the most money you can. Exactly.
Right. I mean, like everyone probably knows, like Monopoly started off as like an anti-capitalist game, and now it was about rent control. It was about like fighting against slumlords, right, or landlords, and now was co-opted into the like pinnacle of like capitalism, right? Mm-hmm. And so board games, I think this board game renaissance is happening. I'm sure there are better historians about like where that started happening, but I do think that the pandemic accelerated that, right? Because people are stuck at home and they didn't always want to be on the computer. right? And so they could get board games and play with their little pods or or their families or things like that. But I also think board games, in intention, are more democratic because they don't require a whole lot of buy-in. And now there's a hardcore board game scene, which I really am frustrated by. I was like, come on, why do hipster gamers need to ruin everything? And I love me some hipster gamers. I could be accused of being one myself, but the idea of like a board game like that costs like $350, that has 800 pieces, that you need a giant table to play on, and you must leave it on there because the game lasts for 35 days, right? I think that's amazing. I think that's a really interesting way to push the genre and the medium. But I ain't got time for that. I don't have money for that. But I do love all these little games that are popping up where they're using the analog format as a way to do things that they can't do in a video game. Or not all of us know Unity. Not all of us have assets to design full-fledged video games. I always make the comparison to like how easy it is right now to make movies, right? Because we have these things, which are pretty good cameras now, right? And we have digital editing software that's pretty easy to use. And I think when we get to game design software, AI is going to change this a whole lot. Sorry, people who went to school to be game designers and coders. AI is messing that all up. But once we can do it easier, then I think we'll start seeing more digital games that are, again, representative of other perspectives other than just the AAA games or, the mainstream games.
Right.
So, yeah.
I have to confess, I have not played Gloomhaven, but that was a comment in the chat.
I was not trying to name check people.
But
she said it, not me.
Right. But you're right.
There's a Gloomhaven Light now. There's a light version now.
And you can also find it on Steam too. Yeah, I have not played any of them because, as you mentioned at the beginning, right, when you teach your classes, like you don't want your students to have to buy a PlayStation 5, to play.
It would be lovely if I'm just like, day one, everyone must buy a PlayStation 5.
Or just like Oprah, you get a PlayStation, you get a PlayStation.
Yeah, if PlayStation would give me consoles to give to my whole class, amazing. I'll totally hawk it, I'll totally, be a brand representative. No, and so I have to use things that, I have to be mindful of those things. And so a lot of times I'm working on a book right now with a friend and colleague of mine named Tim Welsh. And it's a book about teaching with games in a literature classroom or in a humanities classroom. And these are some of the things that we're writing about is like, it's okay to teach a little game. And every time I teach a games class, especially if it's a standalone games class, like this is a games class, you can imagine the audience that I get and the number of people that self-select to be in the course. And so it's full of people who really want to play games. And then the minute they look at the syllabus and they're like, there is nary a AAA game on it, they're like, what the hell, right? And we're like, okay, well, how are we, so I talk about that. Sure. And so how I get around that in my classes is they do presentations and I'm like, you're allowed to talk about any game in your presentation. So if you really want to talk about, this AAA game, great. You just have to bring clips in or whatever. Not everyone's going to be able to play, but this is your job to tell us what this game is and then what you're trying to think about, do with it, all that sort of stuff. So it sneaks in, and I think Steam and Steam-like platforms or itch.io or all these sort of things are there's so much content out there that I don't even know. I learn about new little games all the time. And I just add them to my list and go, one day I will teach this or play this or write about it.
I love that. Yeah. So I never bought Gloomhaven because of the price tag. And then I also thought I would need to find friends who will buy in and commit to this game.
And then where are you going to set it up? And how are you going to leave it there for, who knows how long? you know. And I mean, okay, so you asked me about this off screen, but like, so I just did so I'm the editor for Analog Game Studies, which is the longest standing analog game studies journal, academic journal. So those of you who are interested and want to write about analog games, so board games, LARP, you know, card games, whatever, from an, you know, academically, go for it. We are always publishing really cool pieces. But we just had our annual conference called Generation Analog 2024. All of the talks are on Analog Game Studies YouTube channel, so you can just go look at it. And we were talking about, you know, that board games this year's theme was home, right? So, and you could take that anyway, playing at home, playing things about home, losing your home. We had a couple papers about like the rules in Dungeons and Dragons for how a character can buy their own home and how that's changed over the years and how it doesn't match real life, right? Like that most people now can't buy their own homes. And what does it mean for a game to make this an aspirational thing for you, right? But the idea of playing a board game like Gloomhaven or anything that has that takes up a lot of space is about, do you have a family room? Do you actually have square footage in the place that you live to allow for that, right? And the idea of, you know, I grew up being like, I always wanted, I don't want a man cave. I want like the best gaming dungeon in the world, right? I've always wanted a giant table and like lots of shelves and spotlighting and all that sort of stuff. I'm not into the digital tabletop. I don't like the sound of clacking on glass, but maybe one day when Remarkable, you know, that like that pad that kind of acts like paper, they make a big giant one. Maybe we'll play on that. So yeah. GM Lair, yes.
Yes. So I'll back up a bit in chat. So container port. We'll get to your point, you know, about making games on Twine. That's fantastic. Anger Ostrich said, I was told 2 decades ago to not go into game dev. It's been a meat grinder for a long time. Very sorry to hear that. You should still try. You can make games on Twine. Start there.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's just like any other industry where, you know, where a lot of it is really like, you know, just, I mean, think about the entertainment industry, think about academia. It's like pay your dues, pay your dues, pay your dues. And eventually, you know, you will get to be lead developer, you'll get to be head writer, you'll get to be the showrunner, but so few people make it that far. And now I can joke to be like, you know, me going into architecture would have been exactly the same thing, right? Like so many of my architecture friends, like all they do is draft, right? All they do are drawing other people's plans. So yeah. But Twine, I think, is really fascinating. Again, that's a development and a response to how do you make games when it's too expensive or too time consuming to do so. And I think Twine is a really interesting and fascinating thing. And I've played some really great Twine games. And just like anything else, I've played some really terrible Twine games. But I think there are some people doing some really fascinating things. And Twine got kind of a lot of queer LGBTQ plus designers sort of locked onto Twine as like, this is the way we're going to tell our stories, and we're going to write games about us, for us, you know, all that sort of stuff, which I think is sort of amazing and great. But, you know, I also want to see Twine games that are also doing interesting things mechanically, for example. It also didn't help that obviously Gamergate, which is, you know, this massive backlash against perceived, you know, feminist, whatever, woke, queer invasion of gaming spaces centered around a Twine game, right? And the sexist, phobic critiques aside, the first thing that people said was, this isn't a game. And the minute you start gatekeeping is when you start producing, you know, this sort of, again, this like very kind of like nationalist, orthodox, like chauvinist understanding of what a game is or what a not a game is, right? Kick the Can is a game. It's not a very good game, but many people play it, right? Because it's all you got ultimately. Or again, like exploration is not often seen as a number one game mechanic, but don't play it. Like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to like every game or want to play every game. I think is sort of fascinating. Yeah.
So I was wondering because, right, so of course you're a game studies person and I am not. I only sort of, consume whatever is produced by industries and so on. But I'm wondering if you've sort of seen a shift in, I don't know, the last how many years, as you mentioned, like there might be more queer developers and writers on Twine. And I'm wondering if you can sort of speak about sort of maybe how the game industry is hopefully shifting for, quote unquote, the better or more positive, or where you see the future of gaming going, especially with representation.
All right. You want the bad news or the less bad news?
Can we take both? I don't know.
I have a great friend and colleague and scholar named Anastasia Salter. She has written a crap ton of books. She made the weird decision to be like, I'm going to write 10 books by the time I'm 35 or something like that. And I was like, please stop, roll, slow down, give us other people. No, but she's a great game scholar, digital humanities scholar, technology scholar. But I saw a talk earlier this year where she was talking about statistics about not just computer science, but the game industry as well. But especially, if you remember in the past, I don't know, maybe decade, we've had this big push to get women into STEM, right? So science, technology, engineering, medicine, and especially getting into fields that were predominantly for men, about men or tracked to men, like computer science. And in those 10 years, nothing has changed. And so that's like the bad news, right? Like we want people, companies are always like, we want diversity and we want, all of these different perspectives. But when the like paths to get there are not there, that's already a problem. And then once people get there, obviously we have all of these news stories about tech companies and game companies being these super hyper toxic places, right? Imagine that. And academia has its own demons too, right? And then so they're not even, so they get in the door, but they don't stay. And then let's say they stay and fight it out or figure it out and get to upper management or CEO or whatever. And then they're also don't get to stay, right? And I think this is true of most of our, whatever you want to call it, entertainment industries is people have been complaining about how, Hollywood is still so white or so cisgendered or so whatever. But that really hasn't changed. Right? It really hasn't. Yes, Michelle Yeoh finally won an Oscar, but it's the first time an Asian woman has, in ever, which is insanity, right? Like that's the difficulty. So the less good news is that people are trying, right? I think that's the difficulty is and I think we have to do everything. I think, the more people design games, the more democratic it will become because people will be encountering more perspectives, different kinds of games. But if you've ever gone to itch.io or whatever, Steam or whatever, we also need help in curation. We also need help in signal boosting the people that you think are good or whatever. I don't have that time, but if I'm lucky enough to discover a few games that I think I can use my voice for, I will do my best. But I know that there's a bazillion of them out there. And I'll tell you a little story about LIM. Merit K took LIM off of the internet for almost a decade because they got a lot of attention, and then academics were writing about it like crazy, and they were like, no, thank you. And I don't want to be the poster child for X, Y, and Z. And I'm just really happy it came back literally this year. And, that's what happens though, is that just like anything, people get pigeonholed, right? And then we focus on this one game, and then we're not writing about other games. And game studies has the same problem. Right now we're just seeing a lot of articles about just the same games. And so sometimes I always try to like, again, write about stuff that people are like, what is this? But that's what I think, that's how we also diversify. But also, to answer, this is a very long answer, but getting people in the room is part of it too. And then as an educator, it's not enough that I'm teaching cool or diverse games, but I need to also train the audience. That's the big thing, is we have to train the audience, not just to want more and to be more curious about other people other than themselves, and to like, buy better products or whatever, but we have to train them to give them the skills to be like, hey, this seems racist or sexist or homophobic or ableist or all these sorts of things, and then decide, what do I want to do about that? And sometimes it's like, I don't have the energy today. It's okay. I just want to be entertained, and that's okay. But sometimes it's like, no, I think we should do better. And then you just figure out how to like put that into some form of action.
I really appreciate all of that, because I think, right, sometimes there is this sort of pushback of, a game is a game. There is no serious component, like there's no critical element of it. It's just for play, or it's just for kids. But something we try to do on this program, we try to do like a variety of different things, not just games also. But I think with the games I choose, I hope that they, have like a message and people think a little bit more critically about them. I'm thinking in particular, back in May, I think we played Tales of Kinzera Zhao, which just came out this year. And it was with a scholar who studies Afrofuturism and Octavia Butler, amongst other things. And it was just sort of, amazing, as you said, like one very small step in an industry that often, isn't very forgiving or welcoming to different voices or stories. So, and that was a lot of fun to play. Okay, a lot of great comments in chat. So let me catch up here. So Liquid Prince said, strong opinion, but I think video games are the greatest art form because of how much freedom there is in gaming. And I was wondering what you meant by freedom, right? Because that's what does anything freedom mean? And then Edmond spoke about it earlier. Sometimes it's how a story is told. Sometimes it's about how it expresses that through gameplay. Sometimes it's the way messages can get across through gameplay, story, or music. And sometimes it's the way the art speaks to you. I could give so many examples. It's hard to express through text.
Sure.
And then to piggyback off of that a little, the fact that you can play as the main character can make you feel more attached to them, so it can hit harder emotionally. So these are comments about how people appreciate video games as art forms and forms of expression, I'm saying. Sure.
Yeah. So I'm going to be a little contrarian, and I think games are great. Like, I love LIM. I think LIM does all sorts of really great stuff. I love playing all the games that I've ever played. I'm writing, one of my chapters in my a book that I'm writing is on, the Dragon Age series. Love it. Great. Amazing. But I'm really fascinated and interested in the ways that games can do certain things and the ways that games can't do certain things, right? It's not possible, right? And this is true of all medium, right? So like, for example, in a print codex, right? Let me see if I can grab something here that's not crazy. So like Larissa Lai, Saltfish Girl, right, is a traditional codex book. One thing it doesn't do very well is images, right? Because that's not built into the technology. Now, obviously, we can include pictures, but one thing that text does that's really great is it can create images in your mind that can often be way more vivid and way more interesting and way more complex than, any picture could be, right? And so I think, I always talk about thinking about the costs and benefits, the limitations and advantages, the affordances and constraints of any medium, and thinking about them specifically. There's a really controversial I think it was in the Atlantic, Ian Bogost, who is a pretty famous game scholar and also professional contrarian, wrote a piece that basically was, the gist of it was like, are games the best medium for telling stories? And their answer was no, right? Because they're like, film is better or novels are better, right? And rather than get into calm down, put the pearls down, that rather than say better it's different, right? And this is the thing. I have been trained as a good child of 19th century education, even though I was born in the 20th century, right? That I read novels, and novels do it for me because I've been trained to understand how novels work, right? Whereas games are much newer, and maybe, newer generations are taking to games and developing relationships with games that are very different than my understanding of games. And so for me, I think telling a story through a game is really, really impressive when the gameplay and the story are happening simultaneously, co-constitutively. It's not just um, it's not just, oh, we got to play, and then a screen pops up that's like, here's some story, right? Which a lot of games do, right? And the example I always give is like, I played World of Warcraft for, I don't know, like 7 years. Do I know anything about that world? Hardly zero, because it didn't matter, right? Now you could invest, right? You could be like, oh, I'm really interested in the battle between the Horde and the Alliance, or I'm really interested in why X, Y, and Z happened, or this hero, or whatever. I don't know if the World of Warcraft wiki is still the biggest wiki in the world. It used to be. It may not be anymore. But, clearly lots of people really invested in the story and the world building and all that sort of stuff. But for me, I just wanted to play with my friends. And I just wanted to run around as a gnome and freeze people. And I just wanted to explore and look at different places. But for me, the story wasn't important because nothing in the game made the story important other than if you wanted to learn it or not, right? Whereas something like LIM has a very simple story, but it's very integral to how you understand how the game works. And then some of the role playing games get a little bit better at it, but still, is this the best way? Would I rather read a fantasy novel or play a fantasy game? I don't know. They do different things for me, ultimately. And it could just be like, I love Marvel movies. Are they the best stories in the whole world? Not necessarily, right? And I think we have to be okay with that and not pearl clutch, because I think the minute we pearl clutch, I think any form of orthodoxy is dangerous, frankly. And given the fact that, sorry, this is going to get really serious. Given the fact that gamers, fantasy nerds, Renaissance players, LARPers, like all of these sort of domains are really now overlapping with some like not so great communities, like, white nationalists or whatever. Like we have to, I think any move to be like, you are not allowed to do this, or you don't know what you're talking about, or games are only this way, is reproducing other forms of, normativity that I think is bad, frankly, right? This is not to say that you can't be like, I don't like this, or I don't think this is good. That's different than, I don't like this, I don't think this is good, and you should die. Right?
Yeah, I think gatekeeping anytime is kind of problematic. Yeah, so we don't want it to get there, certainly.
And then I just want to last one thing is that, like, what's really fascinating about this talk about freedom in games, I do think games do allow you a certain amount of freedom, but if love taught you anything, there was none, right? Yes, you can make certain kinds of choices, but nothing in the game can happen unless it's already programmed. Like that's one of the limitations of a digital game currently. Now, that doesn't mean we can't get a sense of freedom. I think that's important. And I think narratively we can talk about freedom and choices and things like that. I think that are really great. But I think digital games are in fact one of the most constrained mediums that we have, right? Because you are locked into all of the decision trees that are available, and that's it. Whereas, yes, quote unquote, like linear and other time-based, a novel is, there's no freedom. You only get what's there. But what if I often hold this up and I was like, this is an interface. There's nothing to say that you can't start at the end and start reading backwards. There's nothing to say that you can't read in the middle and then give up. right? But that's not the kind of freedom that we're interested in. We're interested in the kinds of freedom where you feel like you are in charge or you are in control. And that's okay. That's like one way to think about it. I play a lot of games where, or read a lot of things where I'm not the main character. This is not about me. This is not for me, but I still do it because I think that's where empathy comes from, right? Um, yeah, I don't know. It gets back to the sort of like freedom is a form of winning. And, maybe we can complicate that in some way.
I think we might have to have you back on for a part 2 to explore,
okay.
right?
Yes, we're running out of time.
Right. And that's like that freedom too, right? Like if like if we could talk for hours, we certainly would. Yeah, there's just a lot to think about, and I really appreciate it. Yeah, part 2, container port. I think we have some calls and chat for part 2. I've been wondering. Again, I'm just thinking about I have a lot of questions for you, but earlier you talked about this is interesting to me. Sort of queerness in games as sort of glitches as. Sure. Can you say queering as a verb, like queering the game? Yeah. Does that work? Can you get more into that? Because, again, I'm not a game studies person. I'm not a queer studies person, but I like, being exposed to these ideas and thinking more about it. And I think this is helpful for thinking through, just thinking about the possibilities, right? Sure. So, yeah.
So in the, I don't know, 12 minutes that we have, this is a whole class, right? So queer works on a couple of levels. Queer is an identity. So there are people who identify as queer or identify as LGBT or whatever, and that's important. But then queer has been sort of moved into not just, especially in academia, but in like activists and everyday circles as a verb, right? Like when you queer something or you do a queer reading of something, what you are doing is trying to at first recognize the different possibilities that a text or a thing gives you, or to see invisible things that, or less visible or between the line things that might be possible, right? And so like a very basic form of queering would be, for example, to like, are there queer characters in this story? Are there or is there a queer narrative in this game? But the queering that I do is thinking about like, can we imagine what world is this creating for us? And can we imagine different configurations of gender and sexuality that either show us how limited our world is or how it open and other possibilities that we could have if we just, let's say waved a wand and got rid of homophobia or racism or whatever. And I think most queer games right now generally are focused on queer narratives and queer characters. And I think that's really important because representation is really important, right? But representation is one tactic for inclusion or diversity or whatever. And sometimes representation is bad, right? That's what we call like tokenism or stereotypes or, whatever, right? Just because you add an Asian character or you add a character with disabilities or you add a queer character doesn't mean it's a good addition, right? Does it actually do anything?
Right. Adding for the sake of adding doesn't really.
Right. And also if those characters or those stories are all in service of the, straight cisgendered white dude who is the hero, then that doesn't help, right? necessarily. Now, I'm a person that's like some representation is better than zero representation, right? Like I don't believe in, semiotic annihilation. But at the same time, I think like we are starting to see more people center particular identities and representations. And that's another way to think about querying, right? Like I think about Afrofuturism as a form of centering, African or African American or Black experience, not for white audiences or not for non-Black audiences, right? And so, or queer games are like I've had students and I've heard through, just these kinds of forums where people are like, well, I played this game that was about like lesbian bikers on Mars, killing, monsters or whatever. I'm not a lesbian, I'm not a biker, and I don't live on Mars. So it's not really for me. And I just didn't get it. I didn't really like it, or I didn't resonate, or I didn't it wasn't relatable, which is a word I hate personally. Sorry, millennials and Gen Zs. But it's an advertising term, right? Like, I think you can relate to something, but when you just shorthand it as this is so relatable, it means like, oh, I can just sort of see myself in this other thing. I want to flip that. Maybe the point isn't seeing yourself in the story, but understanding that story from the perspective of the story. And that might make you feel yucky, in fact, right? I teach, African American literature all the time. And I always say, like, this, like, Toni Morrison's Beloved is not for me or about me, right? But I have to understand it. That's where empathy is like, this isn't about my life, but that's okay. And I've been playing games about straight white dudes all of my life, and I don't relate, but that's not me. I don't see myself reflected in it, but I do find entrances into that. And that's also a form of hearing. Also, I just imagine everybody kissing. It's fine, right? Like, it's okay. They're fake. They're not real. No, I'm just teasing. But did that make sense? I don't know.
No, I think it did. I think I appreciate you sort of just elaborating on a different, like, just, right, what does it mean to queer a game, especially for, non-academics. And again, I only say that because I have friends who are, gender and race scholars. So I could at least say that much. But I love the idea of just seeing and allowing yourself to imagine other possibilities, just like your example with a bike earlier, even a seatbelts, in chat, I never thought of this, or I didn't realize that history.
Right. And that's the first step, right? It's curiosity. It's about, rather than grounding everything in your own experience. That's part of it. That's okay. We have to live in the world, right? Like, I have to use my own experience as a way to understand the world. But sometimes, this is the great thing about art. This is the great thing about stories. This is the great thing about narratives and games, is that those are things that also let us see other possibilities. And sometimes they're not for us or about us, but we still need to live in them in some way, right? So that's been my sort of current kind of like soapbox, because we often teach literature as like, oh, you can walk a mile in another person's shoes. And you're like, no, you cannot. And if you do, you stole them, right? Rather, how do we experience other perspectives without colonizing them, without taking them over, without making them about us?
Right.
And that's hard. It's hard. It's hard to do. It's hard. This is hard work, which is why we like the shorthand of relatability, because that's easy. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how you managed to do this, but that's a really good transition into a question that I like to ask all our first-time guests. And that is, what do the humanities mean to you? You've mentioned you're a humanities scholar. You've mentioned all these different forms of texts. But yeah, what do the humanities mean to you? There's no right or wrong answer, I think.
Okay. In the traditional sense, the humanities was about like doing stuff, studying stuff, writing about stuff, creating stuff. That's about what it means to be human, ultimately, right? And I think that's an extension for me. But the extension for me, of course, is that I'm routed through my identities. But humanities, I think, for me, especially in this day and age, this political age, this educational age, this technological age, all these sorts of things, is I bring to bear the perspectives and lenses and theories and training and experiences that help me think about the things I care about. So race, gender, sexuality, technology, as a way to understand what it means to be human. Big giant asterisks. Really what I mean is, who gets to be human? Who doesn't get to be human? Who gets written out of that category? What if we leave the category behind altogether and become post-human, right? Like, or become, what if we're just all robots? Like, is that okay? And I think that's because so much violence and so much awful crap has been done in the service of defining the human as being very, very narrow. And the humanities is well positioned to think about those things, right? And another way to shorthand is all the work I do is about trying to imagine the world differently than the one I have right now, because the one I have right now is really scary in a lot of ways for a lot of people. I'm really privileged. Like I said, like, you know, I grew up staunchly, pretty much middle class, upper middle class. I'm now upper middle class. I'm well educated. I have a steady job. I have health insurance, you know, all this stuff. But at the same time, the world is also, you know, doesn't like certain things that I am or that I do or that I write about or that I think about. And to the point that someone is willing to hurt me or to disenfranchise me or whatever. That's what the humanities is for, because good humanities forms checks against, you know, killing people or marginalizing people, right? And it's, I mean, I don't know. That's my short answer. It's complicated, I guess. And it's also hard work, right? Like ultimately, you know, that's why it's difficult. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that should be printed out. Just, I don't think this was your answer. I think that was the side, but I think it's complicated, I guess. You know, Edmond Chang, 2024.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
What are the humanities?
Well, you know, we have that phrase for a reason. Like, you know, all worthwhile things are hard, right? So why are we taking the easy route?
Right.
Do we not think human lives and humanity and being nice to each other are worth the hard work? Mic drop. No, I'm just kidding. And sometimes we don't, like literally, we don't, right? Because, and you know, and sometimes we also think it's an either or thing. It's like we have utopia or not at all. And, you know, one of my favorite writers, scholars is Jose Esteban Munoz, who passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago, but writes about queerness, but also writes about utopia as a horizon, right? You're never going to get there, right? But you still should try.
I appreciate
that. Because it's in the trying that it gets a little bit better, not just for you, but maybe for the person next to you or for the person that's coming up behind you. And that's what I try to do in my life.
I don't know how this happened. We're somehow towards the end of our stream. So I'm just going to say, if anyone has any last questions or comments, please feel free to put them in our chat for us. And in the meantime, I have two last questions of my own for you, sure, Edmond. So the first one is just, do you have any fun upcoming projects or works that you'd like to share with us? If you want to toot your own horn.
Anything fun? Is anything fun? No. Like I said, I'm designing a card game called Archaea Bane. If you go to my website, you'll see, you can look it up. I'm writing a post right now that's about the update for it. I don't know if it's ever going to go into full production because it's a headache and a half, but it's a game that I really, really like, and everyone that's played it has had a lot of fun with it. I am working on a book right now, like I said, with Tim Welsh, about teaching with video games in the literature classroom. So that probably, you know, the publication cycle is so slow, so who knows when that's going to come out and be done. But and then anything recent, I mean, you can go to look at my publication. Stuff just came out. I think you mentioned in my bio, I have an essay that just came out called Gaming While Asian. And I think it's free to download through Duke or wherever, University Press. But it's an essay that is mixing genres. So it's like personal essay. It's like a little bit of academic stuff, and then some stuff about Asian and Asian American games. But it's written in the form of a choose your own adventure. And so it's super fun and interesting and things like that. And then I don't know, if you just like check into my webpage or whatever, you'll usually see like where I'm going to do a talk next or whatever. But that's barely it. I'm on sabbatical, so I'm not teaching this year. So that's fun for me. But I'm basically going to be writing, and hopefully in the next year or so, a book will come out or two. And that should be great. Yeah.
Well, That's really exciting. And also, I was selfishly thinking, oh, if you're on sabbatical, we can definitely have you back on for part 2. Because I think a lot of people did have a lot of questions. I feel like there are a lot of unresolved questions and things that people want to ask you about.
Get, like, this to turn into therapy either, but, you know.
No, this is all
I have
wonderful.
a bunch of other work that would also be really great. Like, I think I have an essay, hopefully, fingers crossed, about Barbie, the movie coming out. About queerness and Barbie. I have an essay on Asian futurism, a couple essays, but I have one that's coming out about Larissa Lai, who is a Canadian Chinese writer, queer Chinese writer. These are all in the future. So like, this is all stuff like I can't say it's not up to me. But yeah, I can talk about any of those things too. I also just like playing games. I can pick a bunch of more weird little games and then we can just play them.
That sounds great. Okay, last question for the night, okay. I think, just to end it on a light note. And again, I've just really appreciated, I think there's a lot of really good food for thought. I hope that anyone who listened to our conversation tonight or listens to it afterwards, I think just all the different thoughts about, you know, the spaces that gaming and games create and for who, and I think just thinking about belonging and difference. I think those were just some of the many themes that we covered. But okay, here's my light question for you, Edmond. Because this is a little bit hard, I think, because no one likes to do favorites. But what is your favorite game? You know, what makes a good game for you?
Lord. Well, I already shared some. Like, LIM is a favorite game. I've written about BioShock. I think just in terms of like greatest hits, like I think BioShock's a really great game. I think it does a lot of stuff really well. I don't like first person stuff. I don't like horror, but I played that game basically like, don't scare me. But I think that game should have ended about the 2/3 of the way point. And if you've played the game, you know where it would have ended, because I think it was all anyway. So I love that. I love, you know, cheesy fantasy games. Like those all make me happy and fun. So it's usually I often say like I'm a game scholar and I have very little time to actually play games, which is why I gravitated to some of these like shorter indie games because I can just sit down and play them in a couple of hours. I'm trying to think of something that's just like recent that just sort of like, you know, made me really, really happy. And I can't think of anything. I mean, I played a lot of Animal Crossing during the pandemic. I have a short essay on Gamers with Glasses, which is this sort of rogue collective of scholars, industry people, game designers that are just writing little short think pieces. And I have an essay about queerness in Animal Crossing, so you can go take a look at that. I guess here's my answer. I have a gaming group that started over the pandemic. My old gaming group from back east when I still was living in Maryland. And we play my game Tellings. I'm the GM and I look forward to that. Now we're all adults and busy, but in fact, we're not playing for like 3 weeks, which makes me really, really unhappy. Sure. But I even Zoom is hard for that. I really, really miss playing around a table, and maybe one day that will get to happen again. But yeah, so those are the things I'm enjoying right now.
Well, thank you for sharing all of those. So Liquid Prince knows absolutely what you're talking about with regards to BioShock. So I have to play it myself to find out. So
yes, it's good. It's super cheap nowadays. So, yeah. And folks, you know, you can find my socials. You can always reach out. Again, be nice.
He does have one of the best emails. It's literally Chang E.
Chang E, last name, first initial at ohio.edu. It was assigned to me. So, and I always say it's easy to remember, be the change, and, you know, all that good stuff. So, nice.
Yeah. So as a reminder, thank you again, first of all, Ed, for joining us tonight. But this program was made possible with funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities and the United We Stand Connecting Through Culture National Initiative. Don't forget, you can always learn more about our programs on nevadahumanities.org. We have a lot of upcoming events. If anyone would like, I always encourage people to take this survey. If you have thoughts about guests you'd like us to invite in the future, or just, like, oh, I want to talk or explore this topic in more depth, feel free to fill out that survey. And yeah.
Hey, lobby to have me back. I'll totally come back. Yeah.
So yes, definitely fill that out if you have just thoughts on other games or topics you'd like us to discuss and explore in our channel. We do have a YouTube channel, which after a week after the Twitch VOD goes down, it takes a little while, but eventually we'll put the recording of this up on YouTube. But otherwise,
Amazing.
Yeah, I just really appreciate our conversation. Chat was really wonderful tonight. A lot of good things to think about. I put the links to the 3 games a few times in chat, so loved ImmorTall and LIM. If you don't get the links, if you weren't in a chat, look them up on Google. Check them out.
Yeah, just put loved game, ImmorTall game, LIM game, and you'll find it.
For free, the best part.
Yeah, for free. Yes. And also give thanks to those folks too.
Yes. So have a wonderful evening, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Take care.